preamble. So today I wanted to talk about why special education is bad. The disproportional quantity of special education students continues to leave many schools categorized as racist. The present administration has elected to delay the removal of this perception by halting the, quote, significant disproportionality, end quote, rule. States will need to work together to ensure that the embarrassment associated with the perception regarding special education is eliminated. You see, the significant disproportionality rule requires states to collect and examine data to determine if significant disproportionality based on race and ethnicity is occurring in the state and the local educational agencies of the state with respect to 1, the identification of children as children with disabilities, including the identification of children as children with disabilities in accordance with a particular impairment. 2, the placement in a particular educational settings of such children. And 3, the incidence, duration, and type of disciplinary actions, including suspensions and expulsions. Now, one proposed challenge associated with the significant disproportionality rule is that the regulations do not exactly define the term. As an alternative, states are required to use a standard methodology for analysis of disproportionality, which includes states setting the threshold above which disproportionality in the identification, placement, or discipline of children with disabilities within an LEA is significant, which will continue to make special education bad. The federal mandate will make special education bad because states now have an opportunity to redefine a mathematical term which will continue the perception of racism in schools. And so what does it mean to be disproportionate? Let's deal with that first. In mathematics, two variables are proportional if there is always a constant ratio between them. Therefore, disproportional is two variables that do not have a constant ratio between them. An example of disproportional suspensions was reported by the Department of Education in 2014. Students with disabilities were more than twice as likely to receive an out-of-school suspension, which was at 13%, than students without disabilities, which was at 6%. Another example of disproportionality was the suspension expulsion rates for students of color. Black students were suspended and expelled at a rate 3 times greater than white students. On average, 5% of white students were suspended compared to 16% of black students. American Indian and Native Alaskan students were also disproportionately suspended and expelled, representing less than 1% of the student population, but 2% of out-of-school suspensions and 3% of expulsions. Many students who are identified as disciplinary challenged become qualified as a special education student for behavior. Many of these behaviors are in direct opposition to school codes that are not clearly defined and penalize students of color. Students of color are penalized for their verbal and nonverbal behaviors, which continues to make special education bad. Now, instead of the normal process that makes special education bad, Schools must use the Rossella rate formula. The Rossella rate formula is a product of the Rossella rate phenomenon. The Rossella rate phenomenon follows the same principle as Newton's third law of motion, in that whenever there is a perceived infringement by a black male against a white female, there is a negative overreaction portrayed in the media, which impacts schools. Specifically, the Rossella rate, who should use the Rossella rate formula app, for which I am the developer, and it's only $4.99.
Yeah, be sure to check out PositiveRacialRelationships.com. Check it. Look, pull your pencils out, class is in session. Let's focus on loving our neighbor without a question. Visit PositiveRacialRelationships.com. Leading classrooms together like a marriage bond. Kick racism out, that ain't what life's about. For more information, check the website out. Yeah.